Your future isn't shaped by luck, choices, or external events. It's already written in your soul. That's why life often feels like it's happening to you. You chase opportunities, struggle with relationships, and face unexpected failures, but there's a hidden current, a subtle pattern guiding everything long before you're aware of it. Most people miss it entirely, trapped in the illusion that the future is random, unpredictable, or outside their control. Mystics, quantum consciousness researchers, and esoteric traditions all reveal the same hidden truth. Your soul carries a repeatable, energetic pattern that silently directs your destiny, influencing every relationship, opportunity, and breakthrough, even before you consciously act. By the end of this video, you'll know how to decode this pattern. You'll see how your inner reality generates the outer world and how to consciously reshape your timeline. Once you see it, nothing about your identity, your path, or your power will ever feel the same again. There is a structural intelligence inside the human being that most people never notice because it doesn't announce itself through logic or language. It doesn't speak through thoughts, and it doesn't appear through the personality traits you can describe. It exists several layers beneath the mind, in a place where identity is shaped long before it becomes conscious. If the mind is the narrator of your life, this inner structure is the architect, the silent engineer that lays the foundation for your emotional patterns, instinctive reactions, and hidden expectations about what is possible for you in this lifetime. Most individuals assume that who they are is the result of upbringing, cultural values, personal experiences, or deliberate choices. But those factors merely sit on the surface. Beneath them, beyond the ideas you formed in childhood or the opinions you developed as an adult, there is a deeper template, an ancient pattern that emerges from your soul's memory, your energetic imprint, and the internal story you've carried across years, relationships, and unseen emotional thresholds. This pattern is not a single belief, not a single emotion, not a single fear. It is an entire framework of perception, built from the emotional signatures that have shaped your worldview. This hidden framework influences the instinctive way you interpret reality. It determines which opportunities feel aligned and which feel threatening. It decides which people you trust, which people you avoid, and which people you unconsciously magnetize into your life. It shapes your sense of timing, your tolerance for uncertainty, and the way you assign meaning to events. And because it is so deeply embedded, you rarely question it. You navigate life through it, unaware that it is filtering your choices before your conscious mind even begins to analyze anything. Think about it in terms of emotional memory. You may remember certain experiences on the surface, some joyful, some painful, some transformative. But beneath the memory itself, there is the emotional residue, the sensations, the impressions, the unspoken conclusions your nervous system formed. Those conclusions rarely fade. They form the baseline of your inner pattern. If you grew up sensing instability, your soul pattern may instinctively search for safety in ways that limit your expression. If you grew up sensing rejection, your soul pattern may anticipate it even when people genuinely care. If you grew up sensing responsibility beyond your years, your soul pattern may default to carrying burdens that are not yours to hold. None of this happens consciously. You don't sit and decide to repeat these emotional structures. They operate in the background, quietly generating reactions, preferences, and automatic behaviors. This is why two people with similar circumstances can develop completely different lives. It's not talent, luck, or intelligence that creates divergence. It's the invisible pattern, how they interpret experiences, what they expect from life, what their inner frequency broadcasts, and how their subconscious identity interacts with reality. This is where mystical insight and psychological understanding meet. Mystics have described these patterns for centuries, calling them seeds of karma, soul imprints, or energetic blueprints. Psychologists call them internal schemas. Quantum thinkers describe them as vibrational fields that attract parallel scenarios. These explanations may seem different on the surface, but they all point to a similar mechanism. Your inner pattern behaves like a predictive engine, shaping your relationship with life long before life presents you with its next chapter. Imagine that your soul pattern is an algorithm. But unlike the algorithms you find in technology, this one is made of emotion, intuition, unresolved memory, instinctive expectation, and subtle energetic signatures you've absorbed in experiences you don't consciously remember. This algorithm runs silently. It influences your perception of time. It influences how you respond to challenges. It influences how you engage with opportunities. It influences what you consider normal, what you consider desirable, and what you consider impossible. This is why people often repeat the same emotional cycles across different contexts. They leave a relationship but attract the same dynamic with a new partner. They change careers but encounter the same obstacles with new colleagues. They set goals but encounter the same inner resistance, regardless of the domain. The pattern is not outside them, it's inside them, generating a consistent frequency that reality reflects through situations, people, and events. Consider the concept of resonance. In physics, resonance describes the way frequencies interact. A frequency doesn't have to be visible to influence matter, it merely needs to exist, and matter responds. Your soul pattern functions the same way. It broadcasts emotional resonance, not through words or thoughts, but through internal expectation. This expectation becomes a magnetic force, pulling certain experiences into your field and pushing others away. This is why someone who carries a pattern of abandonment may unconsciously gravitate toward people who are emotionally distant. Their internal resonance interprets that distance as familiar, and familiarity feels safe even when it is painful. This is why someone with a pattern built on unworthiness may feel overwhelmed by opportunities that could elevate them. Their internal resonance interprets those opportunities as incompatible with the identity they've unconsciously accepted. And this is why someone who has absorbed a pattern of resilience, confidence, or spiritual clarity can navigate storms that would break another person. Their inner field stabilizes their external experience. The pattern also shapes how you interpret meaning. Two people can face the same setback. One collapses into despair, and the other sees it as a signal for growth. The difference is not personality, it's the pattern. One has a pattern that associates disruption with danger. The other has a pattern that associates disruption with transformation. One soul imprint expects loss. The other's soul imprint expects evolution. And because the pattern influences expectation, expectation influences action, and action influences future outcomes. This is the deeper truth behind manifestation, synchronicity, and the quantum field. Manifestation is not merely about desire. Synchronicity is not random alignment. Quantum fields do not respond to surface-level intentions. They respond to the deeper identity encoded in the subconscious. This identity acts like a beacon, pulling experiences that match its frequency and filtering out those that don't match the internal script. Your life today is an expression of the internal script you've been carrying. Your challenges are part of its unresolved segments. Your strengths are part of its developed aspects. Your relationships are reflections of its energetic narrative. And your future is being shaped by its current configuration, unless you expand your awareness enough to rewrite it. This hidden architecture does not exist to limit you. It exists to evolve you. It presents patterns not to trap you, but to reveal what needs to be integrated, understood, or released. It repeats cycles not out of cruelty, but out of precision. It mirrors your internal state to give you insight into what still lives within you. And once you understand how this structure operates, you stop feeling like life is happening randomly. You begin to see that everything reflects the blueprint within you, an ancient pattern that quietly shapes your path until awareness transforms it. There is a moment in self-awareness when you begin to notice something unusual. Your life does not unfold in a straight line. It circles, it loops. It repeats certain emotional signatures, certain fears, certain patterns of interaction that feel strangely familiar, even when the people and environments around you are completely different. And this raises a question that most people never dare to ask. What if the future isn't created by the decisions you make consciously, but by the automated reactions you don't even realize you're repeating? Consider how often you experience a situation that feels predictable, even though you genuinely tried to do things differently. You tell yourself you've learned your lesson, you promise yourself you won't return to old dynamics, you commit to a new mindset, yet the same emotional landscape appears again in a new form. A similar conflict, a similar disappointment, a similar internal resistance. And it doesn't matter how much willpower you apply, something deeper keeps pulling you into familiar territory. This is where the strange loop reveals itself. The loop is not an external force. It's not fate punishing you or the universe withholding blessings. The loop is an internal mechanism, a psychological, emotional, and energetic repetition generated by the identity you've unconsciously embraced. It continues running because it has not been examined, questioned, or rewritten. And because it runs quietly in the background, you often assume the loop is just how life is, rather than recognizing it as how your inner pattern expresses itself through life. Think about the way identity operates. You believe you are making choices freely, but most of your choices are actually responses programmed by past experiences. If your emotional history taught you that connection feels unsafe, your loop will generate behaviors that protect you, but simultaneously push intimacy away. If your earlier experiences taught you that success leads to criticism or pressure, your loop will create hesitation, excuses, or delays that prevent progress without you realizing why. The loop is not deliberately sabotaging you. It is simply repeating the internal frequency your soul learned to operate from. This becomes even more intriguing when you consider how perception works. Two people can stand in the same moment and see two completely different realities. One sees opportunity while another sees threat. One sees encouragement while another sees rejection. One interprets a challenge as a sign of growth, while another interprets the same moment as confirmation of inadequacy. Their experiences are not shaped by the situation itself. Their experiences are shaped by the loop they are inside. The loop edits reality. It decides what you notice, what you ignore, what you fear, what you pursue, and what meaning you assign to the unfolding moment. This is why your conscious mind can desire something that your unconscious loop quietly resists. You may genuinely want transformation, but if transformation threatens the identity that has kept you psychologically safe, the loop will generate subtle behaviors that maintain the familiar. You may want emotional freedom, but if the loop associates freedom with instability, it will nudge you back into old patterns. You may want connection, but if the loop anticipates disappointment, you may unconsciously choose the kinds of people who fulfill that expectation. Now imagine the implications of this. If the loop repeats until conscious awareness interrupts it, if the loop shapes your perception, which shapes your choices, which shape your future, then your future is not a blank canvas. It is a projection created by the loop's ongoing repetition. And because the loop operates beneath conscious intention, the future begins organizing itself around the version of you that has not yet evolved, not the version of you that wishes to evolve. This raises a startling but empowering question. If the loop quietly influences your behavior, who is actually directing your life, you or the pattern inside you? Most people underestimate how powerful unconscious expectations are. A belief you no longer agree with consciously can still control your instincts. A memory you don't think about anymore can still shape your reactions. An emotional conclusion you formed as a child can still anchor your sense of identity. These internal signatures rarely fade on their own. They continue influencing behavior until they are consciously acknowledged. And while they remain unexamined, they generate consistent emotional outcomes that appear coincidental, but are actually predictable. Think of it like a self-reinforcing cycle. You carry a belief, even if you're unaware of it. The belief generates a specific emotional expectation. The expectation influences your behavior and reactions. Your reactions create familiar outcomes, and the familiar outcomes reinforce the original belief. This is the loop, and the loop is convincing. Because it keeps generating results that feel real, you assume your interpretation of reality is objective. But the results only feel inevitable because the identity pattern producing them has not changed. This is why people often say, "I knew this would happen." Not because they're psychic, but because the loop is predictable. It generates the same emotional experience again and again until awareness interrupts the cycle. It's not prophecy, it's unexamined continuity. The real mystery is this: if the loop predicts your future by repeating your past, then the path ahead of you is not only influenced by desire or ambition, it is shaped by the emotional architecture you carry within. Your loop is the author of your patterns, the architect of your expectations, and the quiet engineer of your instinctive responses. But here is the twist. The moment you see the loop operating, not intellectually but internally, its power begins to weaken. You start noticing the triggers that used to control you. You recognize the emotional signatures that used to pull you into automatic reactions. And as this awareness expands, the loop stops feeling like fate and starts feeling like a pattern you can observe, understand, and eventually rewrite. This is the doorway into the deeper truth that shapes the next chapter. If the loop is creating your future, and if the loop was created by an identity you developed unconsciously, then the future becomes radically flexible. The moment you learn how to shift the identity behind the loop, everything that felt inevitable suddenly becomes transformable. There comes a point in inner work when you realize that life is not responding to your surface-level desires. It's responding to the deeper identity pattern that shapes how you interpret reality, how you engage with possibility, and how you energetically position yourself inside the world. This is the moment when the central insight begins to reveal itself. Your internal frequency is not just influencing your future, it's generating the blueprint through which your future unfolds. People often assume their future is determined by ambition, effort, talent, or circumstances. But none of those factors matter as much as the identity you operate from. Identity is the silent engine behind your choices and behaviors. It shapes your emotional reactions, your worldview, and your beliefs about what you deserve. It shapes your sense of possibility, your resilience, your threshold for risk, and the meaning you assign to setbacks. Identity is the hidden architect behind fate, and the pattern held in that identity is the most reliable predictor of what your future will look like. This is the part most people overlook. You are not drawn to experiences at random. You are drawn to experiences that confirm your internal narrative. Your soul pattern seeks coherence. It seeks the familiar. It recreates the emotional states that match your subconscious identity, even when those states are painful. This is why people repeat cycles despite wanting change. A person can consciously desire transformation while unconsciously maintaining an emotional pattern that contradicts that desire. And because the unconscious pattern is stronger, the future bends around it. This is not some abstract metaphysical idea. Think about how you respond to uncertainty. Think about how you make decisions when emotions run high. Think about how you behave in relationships when fear gets activated. These reflexes reveal your core identity pattern, the one that shapes your entire timeline. If your internal pattern assumes abandonment is inevitable, you will misinterpret neutral moments as signs of withdrawal. If your internal pattern assumes you are not worthy of abundance, you will subconsciously block opportunities or dismiss them as unrealistic. If your internal pattern assumes life is dangerous, you will position yourself in defensive postures even in situations that require openness and expansion. Identity shapes perception. Perception shapes interpretation. Interpretation shapes behavior. Behavior shapes outcome. Outcome reinforces identity. This feedback loop is the hidden machinery behind destiny. This is why mystical traditions across cultures emphasize the importance of self-knowledge. The phrase "know thyself" is not philosophical advice. It is instruction. When you understand the pattern shaping your identity, you can finally understand why your life has unfolded the way it has. You begin to see that your future hasn't been random. It has been crafted through the internal pattern you've been carrying, interpreting, resisting, and nurturing without awareness. And this leads to the deepest part of the revelation. Your future only becomes fluid the moment you shift the identity pattern inside you. People often try to change their life through behavior. They try to force new habits, adopt new routines, think new thoughts, repeat optimistic affirmations. But as long as the internal identity remains the same, these efforts are temporary. The internal pattern eventually overpowers them and pulls the person back into the familiar emotional territory. It's like planting seeds of transformation in soil that hasn't been cultivated. The soil, the inner pattern, decides which seeds grow and which do not. If you want a radically different future, you must understand and transform the identity pattern that has been shaping your timeline. And this requires looking beneath the surface-level mind into the emotional and energetic codes your soul has accumulated through lived experiences, inherited imprints, unresolved memories, and the meaning you assigned to your earliest emotional encounters. The soul doesn't forget those encounters, it integrates them, it forms templates, and those templates become the set point from which your reality emerges. This is why people with similar abilities end up living completely different lives. It's not because one is luckier or smarter, it's because one carries an internal pattern aligned with expansion, while the other carries an internal pattern aligned with contraction. One expects opportunity, the other anticipates limitation. One interprets discomfort as growth, the other interprets discomfort as danger. And reality reflects those expectations because the internal pattern influences how energy moves in their field, how they respond to challenges, how they communicate, how they take action, and how they choose. When you look closely at your life, you'll notice a strange form of consistency. Certain emotional themes keep showing up, certain types of people appear repeatedly, certain fears arise in predictable moments. This consistency is not coincidence, it is evidence of the internal pattern at work. The pattern reveals itself through life's repetition. The same emotional signature appears in different situations because your soul is trying to bring the unconscious into the conscious. It wants you to notice the loop. It wants you to see the structure beneath your experiences. This is the essence of the core insight. Your future is not shaped by external events. It is shaped by the identity you embody internally. You can change your surroundings, but if the inner pattern remains unchanged, the same emotional outcomes will emerge in new forms. You can end a relationship, but if the internal identity remains unchanged, the next relationship will activate the same insecurities. You can switch careers, but if the internal identity remains unchanged, the same fears and self-concepts will shape your new path. The pattern moves with you until you dissolve it. And here is the empowering part. The pattern is not fixed. It is adaptable, it is malleable, it can evolve, it can be rewired, it can be brought into conscious awareness, dissected, understood, and transformed. When you start questioning the emotional expectations you've been carrying, the pattern begins to lose its authority. When you observe how your body reacts instinctively to certain situations, the pattern becomes visible instead of hidden. And once it becomes visible, you are no longer operating from it unconsciously. You are choosing consciously. That is the moment when fate becomes flexible. That is the moment when the future becomes responsive to the identity you intentionally cultivate. This is the true mechanics of transformation. The moment your inner identity shifts, your timeline recalibrates. Your behavior changes effortlessly because it aligns with the new pattern. Your emotional responses change because they are no longer anchored in outdated memory. Your decisions change because the internal narrative evolves. Your perception shifts, allowing you to notice possibilities you previously filtered out. And your future reorganizes itself around the new identity you've embodied. Reality responds to who you become, and your soul pattern determines who you allow yourself to become. The moment you change the pattern, the future stops repeating the past. There is a moment, subtle yet unmistakable, when you realize that the universe has been listening to you long before you ever learned how to speak. Long before your thoughts formed into language. Long before you knew how to articulate intention or desire. The universe was already responding to the frequencies beneath your words, the currents beneath your actions, the invisible roots beneath your visible life. And part 5 is the unveiling of this inner geometry, a geometry that reveals why certain people seem to glide toward extraordinary outcomes while others remain trapped in loops that feel impossible to escape. Because in truth, the universe is not responding to your hopes or your fears, not your prayers nor your doubts. It responds to the state from which they emerge. The inner architecture of your consciousness, the deeper, quieter, almost electrical hum of your being. And once you understand this, life stops feeling like a lottery and starts feeling like a code, an elegant, precise, responsive code whose logic is written inside you, not outside. Your timelines shift not because you shout at reality, but because you whisper to the causal layer within yourself. The shifts happen when you stop trying to manipulate appearances and start altering the undercurrent from which appearances arise. It's like changing the hidden script that the world has been reading from all along, except the script wasn't written by fate, destiny, or circumstance. It was written by your unnoticed baseline, the emotional signature you carry even when you're silent. Most people never realize they're living from a baseline they didn't consciously choose. It might be resignation disguised as calm, a subtle sense of unworthiness disguised as humility, a lifetime of being overlooked disguised as self-sufficiency, or fear disguised as being realistic. But the universe never reads the disguise, it reads the signature beneath it. And when you finally begin to sense your own inner signature, something profound happens. You start hearing the difference between the words you say and the state you're in. You notice how you may speak of abundance while living in contraction. You may speak of healing while still identifying with wounds. You may speak of expansion while your nervous system is still bracing for loss. You may speak of possibilities while quietly expecting disappointment. This gap between the intention you declare and the intention you inhabit is where timelines split, because the universe aligns with your inhabited state, not your declared one. And as you learn to feel this gap, you discover something even more radical. The universe is biased toward the version of you that is most stable. Not the happiest version, not the bravest, not the most confident, but the most consistent. Whatever state you maintain as your default becomes the gravitational center of your life. And this is why change can feel like a struggle. Not because change is hard, but because your default is strong. So the work is not to force better outcomes. It's to become someone whose baseline is no longer in conflict with them. When the baseline shifts, outcomes stop resisting you. The world starts to reflect your inner coherence. Opportunities begin arriving without force. Patterns that once repeated dissolve quietly. People who belong to your next chapter begin showing up, almost as if pulled by the new frequency you're emitting. It feels like magic, but it's really resonance. Resonance so precise that the physical world has no choice but to rearrange itself around the new signal. And then comes the realization that feels almost like a sacred shock. The version of you who already lives the life you desire is not in the future. It's a frequency that already exists now, and the moment you shift into its state, the moment your baseline matches that version, the timeline snaps into place. It doesn't drift. It locks. And suddenly everything that once felt distant becomes strangely natural. Not miraculous, natural. Not unbelievable, expected. Because once your inner architecture changes, your reality begins to obey it with astonishing loyalty. You begin waking up with a sense of inner rightness, as if your life is adjusting itself around you instead of you chasing after it. You start moving through the world with a softness that paradoxically gives you more power, not less. You stop explaining, convincing, performing. You stop trying to be chosen because you feel chosen by your own life. You stop negotiating with your fears because your frequency no longer aligns with them. And the world responds in ways that feel almost otherworldly. People sense something different in you, not louder, but clearer. Not forceful, but anchored. They don't know what changed, but they feel it. They feel the gravitational shift in your presence. They feel the coherence. They feel the upgrade in your inner code. And those who resonate with your new frequency move closer, while those who don't quietly fade, not through conflict, but through mismatch. This is how timelines diverge. This is how parallel futures open. Not by striving, not by chasing, but by becoming the version of you whose life mirrors your deeper knowing. Part 5 is the moment when you realize that invisible causes are not mystical abstractions, but precise levers. You pull them, not by willpower, but by alignment. And when you learn to maintain that alignment, when your state becomes stable enough to hold the frequency of your desired timeline, reality bends toward you with a fluidity that once seemed impossible. You stop waiting for signs because you become the sign. You stop searching for miracles because your life starts functioning like one. You stop longing for transformation because you are living inside the transformation. The universe is no longer something you hope responds. It becomes something you converse with, something you collaborate with, something you co-create with from the deepest, stillest, most luminous layers of yourself. And this is the beginning of real mastery. Not the mastery of controlling outcomes, but the mastery of becoming the cause from which they arise. There comes a moment on this path, a moment you almost don't notice at first, when the shift you've been cultivating internally begins to crystallize externally. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or dramatic revelations. It comes softly like the first light of dawn, so subtle that only someone who has truly learned to listen to life can recognize what is happening. This moment is the call to awakening, not an awakening into ideas or beliefs, but an awakening into authorship, into the profound realization that you are no longer a character wandering through a predetermined script, but the quiet, lucid intelligence writing the script itself. It begins when you feel a strange sensation inside you, a sense that something in your life is rearranging itself quietly, like furniture moving in a house you thought was empty. You notice that old emotional patterns no longer grip you as tightly as they once did. Fears that used to dictate your behavior feel strangely distant, like echoes from a dream you can barely recall. People who once triggered you now seem transparent, as if you're seeing them from a higher vantage point, not with judgment, but with an understanding that untangles the emotional knots that once held you hostage. You start to realize that your inner frequency, the one you've been cultivating with such intention, is no longer just a practice. It's becoming your new identity. You're no longer trying to shift into a new timeline. You are quietly inhabiting it. It's like you've stepped into a version of yourself that you always sensed existed but could never fully access. And now, somehow, the door is open from the inside. Life begins to mirror this shift with delicate precision. You notice conversations taking on a different tone. You find yourself drawn to new environments that feel strangely aligned, as if they were waiting for you. People respond to you differently, not because you changed your words, but because something in your presence has reorganized itself. There is a clarity in your gaze, a steadiness in your energy, a groundedness in your movements. You are no longer reactive, you are receptive. You are no longer bracing for life, you are collaborating with it. This is where the awakening begins, not as a mystical epiphany, but as a quiet recognition that the universe has begun speaking to you in a different language. A language of synchronicity, a language of alignment, a language of subtle invitations, and you find yourself responding with a sense of inner authority you didn't know you possessed. You begin to feel the difference between decisions that come from your old self and those that come from your emerging self. The old decisions feel heavy, effortful, threaded with fear or lack. The new decisions feel weightless, obvious, almost inevitable, as if they were chosen for you by a wiser, deeper version of yourself. And every time you follow that sensation of inner inevitability, reality shifts just a little bit more in your favor. Soon you realize that this awakening is not about enlightenment, it is about empowerment. It is about reclaiming the energetic territory of your own life. It is about gathering the power you once scattered across fears, doubts, external validation, past wounds, and imagined futures. It is about calling your energy back home, and when it returns, it brings with it a clarity that feels almost ancient, as if your soul is remembering something you forgot you once knew. You begin to move through your days with a kind of elegant deliberateness. You speak less, but what you say carries more weight. You act with more precision, not because you are forcing anything, but because you are aligned. There is no urgency, no desperation, no need to prove anything. You can feel the timeline you're stepping into, and its gravity pulls you forward without struggle. This is the awakening, the recognition that you are becoming the cause of your own future rather than the effect of your past. And something extraordinary happens when this realization settles into your bones. You lose interest in trying to control things that were never yours to control. You stop chasing outcomes. You stop obsessing over timing. You stop demanding guarantees from life. Instead, you develop a trust so profound it feels like a spiritual inheritance, a trust that comes from knowing you are in alignment with your deeper intelligence, and that this intelligence has a far wider view than your conscious mind ever could. You start meeting life with a calm expectancy, knowing that whatever comes next is not random, it is resonant. It matches the frequency you now occupy. And so you stop asking, when will things change? and instead begin asking, who am I becoming? Because the moment you become the right version of yourself, the right timeline unfolds automatically. This awakening also brings a quiet courage, the courage to walk away from versions of yourself that feel too small, the courage to leave behind cycles that no longer match your frequency, the courage to let certain relationships dissolve without needing to villainize anyone, the courage to choose what nourishes your soul even when the mind protests, the courage to trust your inner signals more than the opinions of others, the courage to inhabit a future your past never believed you could have. And perhaps the most profound part of this awakening is that you begin to see life itself as responsive, almost collaborative. You no longer move through your days feeling alone, abandoned, or unsupported. You feel accompanied by something, call it guidance, intuition, higher intelligence, resonance, your future self. Whatever name you give it doesn't matter. What matters is that you can feel it. You can feel that you are being guided. You can feel that you are being shaped. You can feel that the universe is in conversation with you. And every time you follow that quiet guidance, the world rearranges itself, opportunities appear, insight bursts through at unexpected moments. Synchronicities multiply, doors open that were once invisible, solutions arrive without effort. People who resonate with your emerging frequency cross your path. You feel carried yet grounded, elevated yet embodied, expansive yet precise. This is the call to awakening, not a voice shouting from the heavens, but a feeling rising from within. A feeling that says, you are ready. Your frequency is ready, your timeline is ready. Step forward and the universe will meet you halfway. And now, as the journey curves toward its final breath, something subtle unfolds, a kind of quiet return, a circling back to the truth that was waiting from the beginning. Not a conclusion, because inner journeys never truly conclude, but a gentle arrival at a place that feels strangely familiar, as if you've walked into a room your soul recognized long before your mind ever did. The hidden pattern within you, the one that has been speaking, guiding, whispering through intuition and emotion and subtle inner movements, begins to reveal its shape more clearly. You sense that your entire life, every moment of resonance and every moment of discomfort, has been pointing you toward this deeper understanding. Not to punish you, not to test you, but to remind you of something fundamental, that the architecture of your future was never built outside of you. It has always been forming from within. And now, standing here at the edge of this realization, you feel the strange weightlessness of truth. The kind of truth that doesn't demand belief because it is felt in every tiny shift of your awareness. You sense that the future is not an external destination waiting somewhere in the distance. It is an echo rising from your inner world. It is the outer reflection of the pattern you now feel pulsing within your core. You begin to understand that your soul has always carried a signature rhythm, something like a cosmic fingerprint unique to your consciousness. This rhythm influences the kind of experiences that find you, the kinds of people who feel familiar, the opportunities that unfold effortlessly when you are aligned, and the challenges that intensify when you drift away from your own nature. And suddenly it becomes clear, your future is not created by effort, force, or ambition. It is shaped by your alignment with this inner rhythm. As this realization settles deeper, you sense a profound calm rising within you. Because once you understand that your future grows from the pattern inside you, you no longer fear what is coming. You no longer brace for unknowns. You no longer feel the need to manipulate life into submission. Instead, you step into a quieter kind of power, the power of coherence, the power of inner congruence, the power of becoming the version of yourself whose future unfolds naturally because it matches the vibration of your soul. You might look back on your life now, not with regret, but with a kind of compassionate clarity. You see the moments where you acted from fear and how those choices shaped timelines that felt heavy or fragmented. You see the moments where you followed intuition, even when it made no sense, and how those choices created openings you couldn't explain. You see how your entire life has been a dialogue between destiny and free will, between potential and expression, between the pattern within and the reality outside. And in that reflection, something transforms. The past no longer feels like a chain, it feels like a map. A map that shows you where you were aligned, where you were resisting, where you were awakening without even realizing it. You begin to understand that nothing was wasted, nothing was random, nothing was meaningless. Every chapter was shaping the inner geometry of the person you are becoming now. This brings a gentle humility, the kind that doesn't shrink you, but softens you. You feel connected to life in a new way, as if you've stepped into a wider field of intelligence. You sense that the universe is not a distant force, but a partner, one that listens to the inner pattern you carry and responds accordingly. And when you truly grasp this, you begin to feel a different kind of trust, one that doesn't rely on guarantees or predictions. It is a trust born from alignment, a trust in yourself. And so the journey arrives here, not with grand declarations, but with a quiet recognition that your future, in many ways, is already alive inside you. It is the version of yourself you are steadily growing into. It is written into your emotions, your desires, your intuition, your perception, your energetic signature. And now that you can feel this pattern, now that you've sensed the architecture beneath your experiences, you hold a different kind of responsibility, one that is both empowering and deeply sacred. Because knowing this, you can no longer pretend to be powerless. You can no longer tell yourself that life is happening to you without your participation. You can no longer hide behind stories of limitations that were never truly yours. You are now the one standing with the blueprint of your becoming in your hands. And with that awareness, everything changes. You move through the world differently. You listen to yourself more deeply. You choose with more intention. You align your inner state with the future you feel calling you. And reality, in its quiet intelligence, begins rearranging itself around your clarity. The hidden pattern is no longer hidden. The future is no longer distant. And you are no longer a wanderer searching for meaning. You are the source of meaning, the one who gives shape to the timeline ahead. So as you step out of this moment, remember this: your future is not waiting on the horizon. It is forming now, from the pattern that lives within your soul. And every time you align with that pattern, reality bends, gently and inevitably, to meet you. This is the unspoken truth at the heart of your life. Your soul knows where you are going. Your future knows your name, and the universe will always rearrange itself around the person you choose to become.